Hey, Andrew.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Well, it being 5:30 by my clock, as Google has mandated it, we will commence the August 10th Select Board meeting. Um, we can start. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, I have.
Yes,
Is
No
there a
change for
motion?
me.
Great. Is there a motion to accept?
so moved.
I will second.
Motion has been made and seconded. If there are no further discussion, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor, Rod,
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and the minutes are accepted. Um, we can continue on with liaison reports. Um, Rod, any updates on your end?
Yeah, I'm meeting with Jeff over on Fisk Mill Road Wednesday at 9 to view that water issue for homeowners I've been concerned about, and they're still cutting back the roads. I guess it's quite a mission, being we weren't able to do it last year, the tractor being down, and emergency management. They have filed for a grant for the generator, but they have not heard back anything regarding that. So we're still waiting on that. I guess that's about it for now.
Great, thank you. Rick,
Um, I met with the Police Services Advisory Committee at their quarterly meeting, which was July 30th. Um, the Chief Bardwell gave us a full report on, as he is spec'd out to do actually in the intermunicipal agreement, on budget condition to date. Both the operations and personnel budgets are on track accordingly, as they should be. Um, there was minimal discussion about the definition of police services capital projects in the municipal intermunicipal agreement. This came to light, you recall, at our previous meeting, the uh, grant that was I don't know, 4,000, under 5,000, but it was a $15,000 job for lighting at the police station that we rejected on good advice. But that we had put into our minutes or our agenda as discussion about a police services capital project. And my Buckland counterparts took question of what the definition is in the intermunicipal agreement as to a capital project. Um, and I can see their point. This may have been a maintenance or building improvement, but they didn't know that it met the definition of a capital project or what the intermunicipal agreement did define the responsibilities. So that was kicked off to our next meeting to have a more in-depth discussion on that particular notation. And we set the next meeting quarterly for October 22nd. And otherwise, it was a brief meeting with basically a good review from the chief of financial matters. And that's all I have this evening.
thank you. Yeah, I would say the lighting project is an interesting one. I mean, my own sort of general take is if it involves more than swapping out light bulbs, then it might well be a capital project.
As I say, that's their point and or their question, but they want to also see what the intermunicipal agreement says specifically on it. And no one was prepared to get that deep of a dive into it at
Yeah.
that meeting. So it'll come up in October.
Well, I know we've had a similar go round with Jim Burnham on the definition of capital in school projects, so
Mhm.
it can be a squirrely issue there to sort out, but it may require more investigation. I don't have any major reports other than a few clarifications and updates. I mentioned that the sewer commission would be meeting together last time we met, and that did not happen. That meeting got postponed, so I don't have a new date for that yet, but it hopefully will happen in the next few weeks. The Pratt Library has also not had a chance to yet to meet with Buckland, though they have, as you've seen from other reports, completed the lift project. So that's been a little bit of good news for the library, since that's been a long time in the works. And and the other what was the other one? Oh, the other project I reported on at our last meeting, which doesn't really fall into any of these buckets, so I'll just put it in here since we have some time, is that we had uh, I have moved forward on the candidate forum in the Shelburne Falls Theater, which is now scheduled for tomorrow at 5:30, the 11th. And that will be a food and farm themed forum that will be led by the farm and food related organizations, the Food Bank of Western Mass and CISA and the Franklin Land Trust and Stone Soup. And Monty Belmonte will moderate it, and there will be all three candidates we hope will be in attendance. They've all been invited, so um, spread the word, and that'll be our West County opportunity to hear from the three candidates for the first Franklin state representative race. That's all I have in the liaison reports and updates end of things. Faith, I think we probably should stick with our timing if we can.
Sure, yeah,
So I'll keep going through the agenda until we get to 5:45.
that's fine. I just wanted to log in, so I made sure that I could log
Okay,
on.
great. And so the next item is the Pocket Park. You saw the latest email from Johanna about their stone finishing project. It sounds like they're inching forward. Any other news on that, Terry?
No, I just asked her to please make the town a priority so that the benches could be installed this summer.
Good. Okay. Well, at least the email sounded a little encouraging that we've moved from the outside to the inside of the shed. So we hope we'll get some finished stone before too long. Um, the second item is disposition of town-owned tax title properties. Is there any update in that bucket?
I do have some information. We did reach out to Sullivan and Sullivan, asking for a timeline and a sequence to bring us up to speed as to how this operates. They gave us a pretty darn good comprehensive overview in the contract proposal, but I was looking for some more detail. One of the things was one of my questions was, how can you auction off properties you folks haven't even seen? And they said, oh yeah, we'll be coming out the week of August 17th. So they plan to come out and view the various properties, get whatever records they aren't able to get themselves, and continue the process. We had been recommended that a fall auction may be the most fruitful. I can't remember the source. It might have been multiple sources, but they confirmed that October would be a perfect month to do this auction. So that's the next two things. The week of August 17th, they'll come out, look at the properties, go back, do their work, start the marketing, etc., and look forward toward the process moving forward for an auction sometime in October. So it's a very brief update, but all we've managed to pursue, because obviously we just had that vote to move forward at our last meeting. It's only been 2 weeks. That's all I have.
And were you able to ask them any of the questions we noted in our last meeting's discussion
Specifically,
about the sort of mechanics of the auction, whether a person registers the $5,000 deposit for each property or for all properties, or
that's for the meeting of the 17th, or the week of the 17th.
oh, you're gonna
When
raise that with them then?
they come out, we'll give them a list of those questions.
Okay, good. Terry, will you keep me posted on when they show up?
Sure. I'm not sure I will know. I'm not sure who they're meeting with, but I will let Angel know that you're interested, and
Okay.
I'll let
Does
you
it-
know through her.
Does Angel have our list of questions?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well,
I'll make sure that happens.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, Angel is obviously our point person for this.
okay,
All of
good.
the communications I sent went through her
Okay,
and copied in.
great. Um, good. I'm going to skip over the lease since that will take a little more time. New business, Carol Groman, expressing interest in joining the Cultural Council, recommended by the chair. Um, any questions or thoughts, Rick and Rod?
I did review her communications and the one from the chair. This this cultural council had a specific number of seats, and she will be replacing, if we appoint her, to one whose six-year term limit has reached its end point. So I'm in favor of, or I will make a motion to appoint Carol Groman as the 9th member of the Shelburne Cultural Council.
I will second that.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Rod, do you have any further questions or thoughts?
I do not.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll bring to a vote. All in favor, Rick?
Aye.
Rod?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and the motion carries unanimously. Well, we are close enough to 5:45 that we will yield the floor to Faith Lally Williams, our planning board chair. Welcome, Faith.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. And Terry, thank you for setting this up for me, or for us.
You're welcome.
So I just wanted to come to the select board, and you all know me. Some of you for longer periods of time than others, but I just thought it would be good as the newly elected chair of the planning board to just reintroduce myself to everybody and just talk a little bit about how we're doing on the planning board right now and things we'd like to move forward with. One of the things that I wanted to say from the beginning is that I joined the planning board mostly because of conversations that I'd had with John Wheeler, who has been on the planning board for a very long time and chair for, I believe, at least 15 years. And I did reach out to Terry, and I am hoping that in some way the town can acknowledge John's generosity with his time and his knowledge and his steady approach to things. It was great having these past few years with him as the chair, and he's graciously agreed to stay on and assist me as I transition into the position of chair. And so I want to go on record as having thanked John and hope that we can find a way of acknowledging the work that he's done for the town. And I also wanted to just kind of put it out there. I am, I consider myself, given John's tenure, I consider myself to be relatively new to the planning board. And I still feel like I'm finding my way and finding my way now as chair. But I wanted to sort of start off on the right foot with the planning board and other boards by letting you know kind of the things that we're talking about and that what we're doing, and that we really are interested in hearing feedback from all of you, either as people who live in Shelburne or people who are on the select board. And so I think many of you have my email address, but I'll make sure that you do. So if there's anything that you either want to come to a planning board meeting or discuss something with the planning board or have the planning board look into something, I want to make sure that we're available to you. And I'll also make sure that you have Susan Durkin's phone email address. She is our secretary. So what we're up to right now as a planning board is, now that we got past this year's town meeting, we have initiated a couple of meetings with the Buckland Planning Board. There are many things that, especially because we share the village, there are many bylaws that we've either copied their bylaw or we've copied their bylaw. They've copied ours, we've copied theirs. And so we're looking to see what sort of commonality there is, especially for the downtown, although they also have rural areas as well. So we are having a joint meeting of the Buckland and Shelburne planning boards. I believe the date for that is September 10th, and that will be at the the town hall in Buckland. Following that will be their normal monthly meeting. And really, we're going to be talking about, I came before you all, I think it was in January or February, to talk about some long-term planning for the town. And then we also have been having, Jeff Stack and I have also been having conversations. We had a conversation with Rick. I want to schedule something with the rest of you, actually, to sort of talk about the planning board and where we're hoping Shelburne will be going in the next several years, and how we plan for that. What we have on the agenda currently for this year is, I believe you're all aware that we did pass a short-term vacation rental bylaw, not this year, but the year before. And we are trying to work with Joe Judd and FERCog and the fire district to make sure that the process isn't too onerous. So that's mostly being handled by Paul Hollings. He has a meeting with FERCog and with John Taylor and trying to remember who else, Joe Judd, to sort of align the permitting process and the application process so that it's not too much of a burden on Joe, and so that it's a pretty clear-cut, straightforward process. Other things that we're working on are, we're still in discussion about, I know not everybody thinks we need to update the housing plan, but we're looking at that and talking about it. And we also are still looking at, sort of long-term strategic plan, probably not immediately, but either a joint venture with Buckland or on our own for a long-term strategic plan. The only other thing is that we do send a member to attend the Open Space Committee. That has historically been John Wheeler, and John has agreed to continue that for this year. And then probably next year, I will be the person who takes that on. So I think that that's just about everything that I wanted to say. Again, I wanted to thank you, Terry, for setting this up and for you all letting me come to your meeting.
Thank you,
So,
Faith.
sure.
Appreciate you coming in and sharing your projects. Rick and Rod, do you have questions or comments for Faith?
I don't. As Faye mentioned, I met with her and
Jeff.
Jeff.
Yep.
First name escapes me. Several Jeffs here in town, but yeah, and kind of gave me a thumbnail of this previously, so I'm up to speed on that as well. And I thank you so much for bringing it into the full board as well.
Great.
Ron?
I have nothing at this point.
Great.
Okay. Well, as I
Okay.
said,
I do have a couple
oh,
of
good.
comments.
All right. All right, Andrew, let's go.
Um, one is the strategic plan you mentioned. Is that the comprehensive plan, or is that a
Yeah.
different thing?
Yeah. No, that's the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if there was another kind
No,
of thing in the
there,
works.
some
Uh,
towns call it a strategic plan, some call it a comprehensive plan, basically the
okay.
same document.
Great. Um, my only other comment, I think that's great, the projects you are working on. I would look forward to meeting with you and Will and Jen and others on the housing question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested in moving beyond planning, but
Yep.
I'm certainly supportive of planning if planning is needed. But we've done a lot of planning, and I'd love to see us begin to think about where do we put housing that people want to have in town.
So implementation, you want to go to the implementation
Implementation,
phase.
yes.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
I'm very keen on that. We have not built any new affordable housing in what, 50 years or something?
Something
So
like that. Yep.
now is the time.
Okay.
Um, and but that's, obviously is more than just a planning board function, but I think the planning board can be a leader in that
Mm.
process. And the only other comment I have, which is one I've been making to other boards in the past few weeks, the CPC board we had a meeting with or public hearing with last week, and I'm encouraging all boards to go beyond the minimum when it comes to posting public meetings and hearings. And especially if you want to get engagement from the
Mhm.
community, take that handful of projects that you are, outlining for us and parcel them out among your board members and give them homework assignments and say, here's a 200-word article you can put
Mm.
into the two-town news to educate your fellow Shelburne residents about this or that, and kind of keep them really up to speed on not just when you're meeting, but what you're working on.
So I will say, Andrew, that Susan is also the secretary for the CPA. So you'll see yourself in our next minutes because she did come to our meeting and pretty much give your rap about that.
Oh,
So
good.
I think that is our plan,
Fantastic.
to sort of broadcast
Yeah.
a little bit more.
And I'm
The
not singling you out. I'm really
Oh,
just
no,
trying to
no,
spread
no.
this message to across all of our boards to say, here's a resource, use the recorder, use the two-town news, use NEPM, whatever, and
Yep.
and get the word out.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And we have run a couple in the Two Town News, and I think I love the Two Town News, so it's a great vehicle for getting the message out about things. I think the only other thing, and this sort of came up at right before our last meeting, but there was an article in I mostly get the Gazette because of work. There was an article about the ADU bylaw in Amherst and a dispute that's happening among the town boards there, in my opinion, because of a lack of clarity in a certain way about their ADU bylaw. And it has to do whether, I think 900 is something you can do by right. And a developer was developing 900 square feet on the first floor, but had a half attic that they were going to finish on the second floor. So it brought it up to something like 1,200 square feet. So I think we're going to look at our ADU bylaw and see if there's any clarity that we can lend to it. So we're not having the planning board and the building inspector and the zoning board of appeals not happy with each other. So
Right.
that's something that we'll be looking at as well. But I think that's pretty much what we're up to these days.
Great. Good. And I would say one other item I'll put in your hopper that following on from our conversation at town meeting is that I hope you will use this year to educate the residents of the floodplain about the new law, since we've now given ourselves a year to
There you go.
to test that in practice if it should come up. And I think this is a great opportunity to engage the FERCog and the state in further educating people about the map that's supposed to be coming our way.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I think also working with the folks who are working on the MVP would be an
Yes.
appropriate place to have that to start forwarding that conversation.
Yeah, and if you can help, unearth some people who might want to step into Trisha Yakovone
Mm,
Biaggi's shoes, she really got us off to a great start with
right.
MVP, but
Yeah.
we need somebody to pick up the baton and keep that going forward.
Okay. Well, I'll see what I can do.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you again for coming by.
Thank all of you. And as I said, I'll make sure that you all have my email address and Susan's email address. If you have any questions for us, just reach out or come and join us for a meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Thank
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, Faith.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Um, let's see. Well, why don't we do one quick item here so we'll get closer to 6. We'll get right to you, Alan. And the
Elaine.
other, Elaine, I'm sorry. Thank
It's
you.
okay. It's French for Alan.
Uh-huh.
You had it
Uh,
right.
okay. Alain, as they say in the movie business there.
Yes.
Um, And the Four Phantoms Brewing Company has a request for a 1-day wine and malt license. Have you all had a chance to look at that?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second, and not just the 1 day, but the 4 1 days that they've applied for on that application, which
Oh,
is
thank you. Yes.
August 29th, September 13th, September 20th, and September 27th. So I
All
second.
right. We'll include that in the motion. Is there any further discussion of those 4 1-day permits? Well, hearing none, I would just say it looks to me like they have met the basic requirements and have done this sort of thing before and have both the insurance and the tips licenses. So I support their application. And we'll bring the matter to a vote. All in favor, Rod?
Aye. Aye.
Rick? Rick?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and the motion carries. And good. All right. We have done new business and we're going back to the Franklin Land Trust regarding the gift of conservation restriction on 62.37 acres at Taylor Road. Elaine, you're
Hi.
on.
Hi everyone. Haven't been here in a little while. For those who don't know me, Elaine Pedroy, Deputy Director of the Franklin Land Trust. And I am here today to ask for your support for a conservation restriction that is being donated to us from Mount Grace, who is just about to own this parcel. And this parcel of land was donated to them by the owners that have had it since like 1972, Nancy and Phyllis. So I can share a map with you if you have you had a chance to look at the map?
I have seen the couple of maps that you included in your attachments. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if folks are familiar with it, it's a 62 acre kind of ridgetop parcel along Taylor Road. It slopes straight down to Taylor Brook, which is a cold water fisheries, meaning that it should be able to be supporting trout and other native fish. So the land was donated to Mount Grace Land Trust, which is headquartered in Athol, by Nancy and Phyllis. And then as part of the agreement, they need to put a conservation restriction over top of it. So even though they're land trusts, they still have to do a restriction on top of it. So it has 2 layers of conservation. It's owned by a land trust, and we will be overseeing the land trust of Mount Grace to make sure The land is primarily forested. It had years ago had pasturing dairy cow up across the top of the ridge. It is fairly steep along Taylor Road. There's really almost no place to get in. You kind of have to hop up this 4 foot high stone wall. There was a little logging road in the northeast corner of it. But so I think it's an appropriate property for conservation. Locals do hunt on it. The Mount Grace Land Trust, the conservation restriction that's going on it that we will hold does allow public access. It also allows hunting and other recreational forms, hunting and hiking, not really fishing. So it is really open for public use. The restriction will allow agriculture and timber harvest, trail building, things like that. So they have cleaned off what was up there was a small hand-built little camp way at the top of the ridge. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, that they built using horses to bring up all the materials for it back in the 70s. That's either in the process of or finishing getting cleaned off. So FLT will hold the conservation restriction and check on the property once a year and check in with Mount Grace. It's a fairly light lift for us because usually overseeing another property that another land trust owns is not a high risk project. I do believe, and I would have to check, unfortunately, no one from Mount Grace was able to make it. There's something had come up, but I do believe they keep it in chapter. So it'll be in chapter probably 61 forestry. But I can follow up on that, make sure that that's the case. So we'll hold the restriction on it. And part of the process is that the land trust asks the town to support it through a vote from the select board and then the signing of the conservation restriction. And then after the select board signs it, we sign it, the landowner signs it, Mount Grace, and then it goes back to the state and the state signs it, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So we've already met with the Conservation Commission, so they were supportive of it. A lot of them understood and had been up there, in their just history of living in Shelburne. So they completed a municipal certification attesting to the public benefits and conservation values of protecting it. So that's getting signed or is already signed at the town hall. And so we would ask that you sign the restriction, which I would get a copy of to Terry, the page for the selectmen to sign after a vote. So questions, concerns, general comments?
Rod, I do have a few questions and comments. Rick, go ahead.
I don't. I'm very familiar with that piece of land. And like you say, Shelburne residents have hunted up there for years, and I'm one of them.
Yep. And it's good, like they're actually in the restriction. It actually just with prior notice, it allows you to put a tree stand up or a deer stand. So if that's how you hunt, you just have to check with Mount Grace. And so, we'll put together a little communication packet about that. But that's basically in the document. It says like, hunting is allowed and people can put up tree stands or deer stands or so, which I think is really nice, that's a continued use. Yeah.
And I thank you for that.
Yeah. It's a good spot.
It
It's
is.
got a lot of wildlife use up there.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Rick?
I'd just like to say that I do agree as well that that's an appropriate process for that particular parcel.
Yeah.
Our meetings are recorded, broadcast on the cable 3 times a week. They're on YouTube shortly after our meetings, so a lot of people do view them later.
Good.
I think we should mention as a locator because without it, I think it didn't make sense. This property does front on Taylor Avenue. You mentioned that by first name only. It's the property of Nancy Hazard and Phyllis Lawrence, and I think that'll help a lot of locals know
Yes.
where this particular lot is. And I support the signature of this support as well.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Elaine. Couple of questions. In the documents you sent, there's a lot of description and mention of agriculture, which was a little surprising to me given the topography and the forested nature of the land. Can you say a little bit more about what the thinking was in all of that planning for agricultural use?
I think so the past history of this property is that it was open, it was pastured. There were cattle up there. And so, now it's overgrown. And I think, in perpetuity is a long time. So when you look at this property that, maybe I think it's not a very likely scenario, but I think we like in the land trust community to keep all those opportunities open. And if it was appropriate, to maybe open up a field on the top of the property again, because one of the abutters, had cattle or grazing animals, that could be something that's allowed with this language in it. So that language is just fairly standard now in our conservation restrictions. Even if it's like 30 acres of agriculture or 5 acres, you still put in that full set of purposes to allow what you might
Hmm.
want.
Okay,
So it
great.
is weird at this point to be saying agriculture, but it might be again.
Sure.
Yeah,
No, that's certainly a third of
yeah,
Massachusetts was once cleared off and now isn't. So,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
um, the other question I had in looking at the list of restricted and accepted uses is there's no mention of telecommunications towers. And I was curious whether that's because you're not allowed to restrict or that or if it was just left off.
Nope. So if you look at the bottom of page 3 under prohibited uses, that's where we take away all the rights of the landowner, and it says antenna, utilities.
Okay. I must have just missed that then.
Yeah,
Okay.
it goes up to the top, conduit, solar array, utility tower, solar panels. Yeah.
Okay, because
So
it does have a section on green energy that in the
yes.
accepted uses. Yeah.
Right. So that gets put back in. So
Okay.
that's how these things work. We clean the slate of saying you can't build anything kind of thing. And then we allow. So if, for instance, Mount Grace decided to say open up 5 acres for pasturing because on a neighboring, farm, they want to allow that and allow that diversity to happen, they could put in some solar panels that would support the agriculture,
Hmm.
whether that's to put electric fencing up or something like that. So that's kind of what that could be used for. The solar has to be used on the property.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
The only other question I had is since you talked about it being donated to Mount Grace, which is a nonprofit tax exempt property, and then them putting it into the chapters. How does that work since they're not required to pay taxes, do they voluntarily pay taxes on chapter land or
Right.
what's
And I definitely wanted to preface that is that I do believe they put some of their lands in chapter. So like Franklin Land Trust, we put many of our properties in chapter. We could claim exemption as a 501(c)(3). We have like our property that was the old McKinnon parcel in Shelburne Center, that triangle, that's in 61B. It was 61A because it was being hayed and that just got tricky. So that's 61B. So, you know, many land trusts do choose to either keep the land in 61 if it was already in 61, which I believe this property was already in 61, just to keep that process going.
so in other words, then the bottom line is that the tax relationship with the town of Shelburne will remain the same as it has been before? Is that the
It's
story?
and that I do have to confirm with Mount Grace, and I wish we just didn't get someone to come on here, but that's very possible that if it's been 61, they'll keep it in 61, 61 forestry probably for a forest management plan. But I will confirm that with you and send you that. I know this is a public meeting now, so people are hearing that, but that does need to be confirmed. But that is
Okay,
often what happens. I know that we do that for many properties. We would choose to keep it in.
I see. And is
Yeah.
that it sounds like you're choosing to keep it in is almost like a kind of pilot arrangement with the town, since you're not required to do that.
Right.
Is that process put in writing, or do you just kind of do it from year to year as you choose or not choose?
So I can only speak for what Franklin Land Trust does. I mean, we own about 21 parcels of various sizes that are either been given to us or we've purchased. And we look at each one individually. We have a small farm field in Deerfield, and we keep that in 61A and we lease it to a farmer. Only half of it, because the other half's very wet and nobody would farm it. But that's a decision that we make to kind of keep being part of the process and part of the tax base, if you will, to help support the towns that we work in. We all understand the implications of what we do. Often taxes go down and or disappear when exempt organizations can own them. And so we have many of our properties in 61 forestry. We get long-term plans, and we really work um, to manage the forest in a way that benefits the woods and benefits the community. So we do 61. We have a few in 61A, some that are not properties that we would manage for forestry. We would just put in 61B. And then we do have a few that we keep exempt that are very much more the properties that are used for a lot of public use. Like they have trails. We have a community garden on a property in Plainfield that's used by almost 20 or so families. And we feel like the public benefit of having that property, it just is better for us to keep it as an exempt property. But we look at each one individually.
And
That's
typically,
that's us.
when you put a land into the chapters and pay taxes on it, that presumably, I mean, you mentioned leasing some of it for agriculture, so presumably there's at least a break even, sort of
No,
put
not
together for
really.
you all where you're getting some income and to cover the taxes or
Mostly no. We just feel that it's a good policy to be part of the community in that way.
okay.
That's really it's a cost to us. The leasing that we have, it's very nominal.
Hmm.
You know,
I
and
see.
but 61A is relatively fair in taxing,
Yeah,
so it's only a small portion of a property. And
right.
61 forestry it's not a lot of money, but every year it does add up. But we just feel like it's a really good use of what we want to do that. We just feel it's important to do that. So
Yeah.
pilot, you can call it a pilot, but we kind of just keep it in. And if the landowners that we get it from have it in that tax base, then that's just easier, right? We're not making any shifts. We might just try to keep it there. And the town knows that's where it's staying, that's what it's been, and we'll continue that. So that's how
Good.
we choose. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I do make it a practice to make sure that townspeople know what's happening with land when it goes into conservation easements and
Yeah.
whether it has a tax consequence to the town. And
Right.
we're also, in a larger conversation about the state's pilot formula, which is sort of,
Yes.
in the same bucket as the chapters and
Yes.
that's why I asked those questions. But
Yeah. And I did go to the pilot meeting in Pittsfield like just 2 weeks ago, that was the one I was able to go to. Very interesting. I think that, and if you read the pilot report that they did last year from the Department of Revenue, I think folks at the state are finally understanding the process, the problems and the inequities with pilot payments for Western Massachusetts. It's almost astounding when you hear the numbers of what they get paid per acre, in Hawley versus,
yeah,
even just central Mass. But, particularly, of course, you go out to Boston. But, and
yeah,
I always say to folks that, in the land trust world of the state and if you want to do more land protection to save the critical, forests and acres, you have to make this program work for the towns where you're doing all this land protection because it's brutal. It's really
Right.
brutal. So I'm glad they're looking at it. I'm really glad that
Great.
the state's
Well,
looking at it. Yeah.
we appreciate you all continuing the chapter relationship.
Yes.
That's a very
Yeah.
uh, neighborly thing to do. So,
Yeah.
um, good. Well, and are you looking for a motion for us tonight?
Yes, a vote to support the restriction. Um,
Okay.
yeah, donated by Mount Grace to the Franklin Land Trust on the 62 acres on Taylor Road. And then the
Somebody like,
signatures.
okay. Would somebody
Yep.
make that motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any
Excellent.
further discussion?
I would just like to ask that we would sign this if this vote is positive. We would sign this on Wednesday.
Okay.
And I would hope that we could have your feedback on what their plans are about that, leaving
I
it
definitely will check with them.
in
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
Because if we vote tonight, we're signing it anyway. But
I appreciate that.
we do get asked questions, so it'd be nice
Yeah.
to know what we're talking about on that standpoint.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Rick, what is the significance of Wednesday?
Wednesday is when we go for warrants and would sign this document.
Yeah. I'll bring a
Oh,
copy
I
of it.
thought you made it sound like something special was happening on Wednesday, but
Oh, that's the
oh,
day we do it. So I was asking her to get us that information
oh, I see. Okay,
Yep.
sure.
for that.
Yeah, just for efficiency purposes. Yeah,
Yep.
good. All right, Rod, any comments on your end?
No, I'm good.
All right,
Excellent.
well, if there's no further comments, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor, Rod,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and the motion carries. All
Excellent.
right. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you,
all.
Elaine. I
Okay.
appreciate your taking the time to visit with us and
Of
answer
course.
our questions. And
Yeah,
it sounds like a worthy piece of conservation land. So
I think so.
yeah,
So
good.
excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
righty.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Terry.
Bye.
All righty. We are almost there. We have one more item, which is the Memorial Hall Association lease, which expires on December 31st of this year. And we have the redlined lease from our attorney in our packet. Do any of you have questions or comments?
Um,
Go ahead, Rick.
we did get this late this afternoon, as the rest of us know, and there's quite a few things. As I had mentioned before, it was a 10-year-old document, so we felt it was prudent to run it by town council before we started the process. And she had mentioned while I was discussing something else with her that there were things that she saw that she knew needed to be fixed and updated to today's standards. So there is a lot there. I think that I'm not prepared to discuss them specifically this evening, but I'm wondering, do we do that in an open meeting, or do we have an executive session, go through these, accept or reject the changes that are in it to be suggested before we send it on to the association? Such things such as I think we're $100 $100 a month or something. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, $100 a
Yep,
month
you're right.
for 10 years. So that was good 10 years ago, but not so good 9 years ago, not so good 8 years ago, and so on. And this is another 10-year lease. Should we think about adjusting that at least at a minimum to something like the standard rate of inflation, which would bump it up an insignificant amount, but it would at least kind of be something we should look at, and other minor things like that. Are those things we discuss in an open meeting with a contract, or are those things we should do in a quick executive session after we've all had time to study the whole document?
Well, Terry can advise us on that. My own take is that if we were discussing it with the lessee, that we would do that in executive session. But if we're just discussing it among ourselves, I don't think that we have grounds for an executive session. But Terry, what's your take on that?
I would agree that any negotiations between the two parties should be done in executive session, but the review of Donna's changes are fine to do in open session.
Okay. So in that case, I hate to kick the can down the road, but like I said, we got it at 3:30 this afternoon. I don't know about you, but I stopped and had dinner. So, and it was what, substantial number of pages. I think we should put it off to at least our next meeting.
I agree.
Okay. Well, I will. I'm happy to continue the discussion at our next meeting, but I did have a chance to read it, and I didn't think the changes were remarkably substantial. There was a lot of boilerplate that she was adding at the end about insurance and severability and all the rest of it. I think the lessee will have to take on board the insurance changes she's making and make their own assessment of that. I didn't, they look more detailed, but not actually higher in dollar value to a significant extent than what we had asked before. We just spelled it out a little bit more. Is that what your sense of the insurance verbiage, Terry?
That is correct. The only addition is that you had referenced multiple times that you believed that additional insured was a part of the lease and it was not. So I asked
Okay.
her to include that language.
Yeah, I think that's
Everything
certainly
else,
useful and fair, and helpful, I think, for just protecting everybody. Um, yeah, I think that I had sort of three um, questions for my colleagues and Terry. Uh, One is, and each of you have different lengths of time that you've experienced this lessee in your role, but maybe you've had longer experience just as a user of the hall. But I'm just curious to know what your general take has been on the experience with the lessee over the last decade.
My right off shooting from the hip has been no problem whatsoever.
Mhm.
I,
Rod?
I can't comment because I haven't had any real experience with them.
Okay. Never been
So
to a show, huh?
I've never heard of any issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would
Well,
confess I've never been to a show either.
all right. Well, you guys are frugal users of the Memorial Hall experience. I guess you don't play pickleball either,
I do
Definitely
not.
not. No, that's for older folks.
huh? And Terry, how about you? Since you've had a more daily interaction with the hall over that time, what's your experience been?
I would say there are occasions when there's minimal disruption to the workplace, when there's bands that need to come in and set up the day before or rehearsals. But overall, the individuals overseeing those productions are really receptive to our concerns and recommendations and have addressed them.
Good.
So,
Okay. Well, it
yeah,
sounds no big red flags are flying here in terms
no.
of our ongoing relationship. Well, then the other two areas that I had questions about, one is that there is no mention really of capital improvements, and we have been as you all know, in a pretty long-term partnership with this lessee to make capital improvements to the hall, not just maintenance and repairs. And so I didn't know if that was something that we should reference in the lease in some way. Do you have any thoughts on that, Terry?
It's been a while since I've read through the lease. I thought there was language in there about prior approval for capital improvements.
No,
But are
there
you,
is. Well, there's language about the lessee adding their own sort of fixtures and equipment, to the
are
hall and
you,
then removing them when they're no longer a lessee or whatever. Um, which is fine, but
Mhm.
I'm talking more about the major capital improvements that we have been embarking on for a while, including way back when the lessee, raised $100,000 and put in an HVAC system, or more recently, working with the town to raise several $100,000 to do a pretty major renovation of the audience part of the hallway. Still a lot of other work to be done, but um, it seemed to me like that would be worthy of some kind of acknowledgement, and I'm not sure kind of where that goes because that is not kind of normal behavior in a landlord-tenant situation to have the two parties actively collaborating on, essentially a full-on rehab of the facility they're using.
Um, I guess in some ways it's similar to projects at the Arms Library where they bring capital needs to the town and then we partner to make it happen. Um, Maybe not the best example because it seems like the town carries the weight of the financial burden. I'm not sure what kind of language and what you're hoping to accomplish by acknowledging that in the lease, but it's certainly something the board could look at.
Well, in part, I raise it because it leads directly into the next area in question, which Rick already referenced, which is the rent of $100 a month. And I think that in looking at this rather distinctive partnership that the town has had with the lessee, which has benefited both parties tremendously in improving the hall during the course of the lease, I think that should be taken into consideration when we ask ourselves, one, why are we charging rent at all? And two, what rent should we charge? And I guess the third place where I would look at that, since I've already mentioned pickleball, is we are in the business in the town of providing services to our residents. So we have a recreation committee made up of volunteers that makes use of an otherwise vacant building or mostly vacant building, the Cowell Gym, to provide recreational services for the residents of the town. And they do a pretty nice job of it. But I guess what I would ask is when we look at renewing this lease, which is with not a town appointed board, but with a nonprofit board, but also made up of volunteers, most of whom are town residents, who provide those recreational arts services to the residents of the town. Are we handling those two activities in the same way? And are we treating them each, you know, as we would the other? So I think, this is something that I keep coming back to, which is when we look at salaries and raises, when we look at town services, we should look at those services across the board and say, are we doing that in a fair and appropriate manner? So I put that into all of your buckets to ask yourself that question when we return to this subject of uh, do we charge rent for this project? Do we charge rent for the Cowell Gym? And uh, and
We
and what
actually,
should
I'm sorry.
yes,
Yeah, I think we do actually charge rent for the food pantry in the lower level of Cowell. I don't know what it is. I know it's minimal,
right.
as is,
$50 a month.
yeah,
Okay, so I'm just saying we should open up the books and say what's our policy across the board for making services available to our townspeople.
great.
I will say, just commenting to your statement, Andrew, is that there is an impact when hundreds of people are using the upstairs. There's an impact on the bathroom, sewer, water, the toilet paper, the cleaning. And I think the rent was put in place to offset those expenditures.
Sure. Yeah, and I think there's an impact on the Cal Gym when we invite people in to do sports or
Absolutely. And
access
they
the
pay
food
them.
pantry and all I'm not saying that there's no impact and there's no I mean, the town has been great about sharing the elevator maintenance costs as well as the downstairs cleaning costs, which, has some impact from the upstairs. But all I'm saying is we get to do this once every decade, and we
Right.
should open up the books and say how do we do this stuff as a town, across the
Mhm.
board with the services that we offer.
Okay.
I will point out that the things you reference at the Cowl, those participants all pay money to do it. And that
Right.
comes to the town too. So,
And I agree
right,
with you, Rick. I'm just saying, let's look at it. Let's open the books and look at it as a even Steven deal.
perfect. So I think this is a great example of why we should each take time to go through this, mark the things that we want to discuss at our next meeting, come to some sort of agreement, and push this forward and get it to them. The other one I'll mention, since you are wanting to spend a little bit of time on it, is the coverage limits of liability. The 10-year ago, um, general liability no less than 2 million, occurrence limit of 1 million, and policy should carry a limit of no less than 500,000 for damage to premises rented to you. So I think all those need to come into line as or be looked at for sure, to see
Donna
if
did.
Donna did.
Yes.
Well, I'm assuming she wasn't just throwing random numbers out there.
No, she said that the insurance limits were acceptable.
Yeah.
The ones that she put in.
Yes. She didn't change the limits. She spelled them out more clearly in her version.
And
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, I think those are similar to the kind of liability stuff we've done on the Pocket Park as well, right?
Yes, and our construction projects.
Yeah.
No, there definitely are changes. Her version, property damage liability, 1 million each occurrence, 2 million aggregate. And the current contract is 500,000 damage to premises. So she did tweak those numbers. Again, that's at first glance. As I say, I didn't read through it. I skimmed through it real quick before this evening's meeting. So those are the kind of things that I think we need time to look at, make sure we're all comfortable, ask our questions, and do the right thing for the town.
Good. All righty. Well, if there's no further discussion on that, we'll table that and bring it back at our next meeting. Um, let's see. We are now at any other business. Do we have any other business, Terry?
No.
All right. Next meeting is August 24th. Um, Terry had raised the question of what we might want to do about the Labor Day holiday, which falls on the following meeting, and I suggested that we just address that on the 24th, and when we'll hopefully have a better idea of what level of traffic we have on our agenda, whether we want to reschedule that meeting or just skip over it. We can pick that up on the 24th.
Yep.
Um,
We
good.
are, and we are in an open meeting, and I think historically, at least in my 3+ years, when it's a Monday holiday, we've done it the day after on Tuesday. So I've booked that out on my calendar as a just in case we need to
Okay.
meet.
Good.
But I agree with you 100%. If we can pass over that meeting, if nothing is pressing, that might make sense to pass over at that time. But I
Right.
think, right, a little closer to it.
So we'll bring that up on the 24th.
Yes.
Any correspondence? I don't see any. So if there's no other items before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, Rod,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and we are adjourned. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you on the
everyone.
24th.
Good job tonight, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.